The kracha is in my coat pocket. Has been for 37 years. I don't take it out much anymore, but some mornings I find my hand already in there before I'm fully awake. Fingers on the laminated edge like checking a pulse. It's 5:30. The Allegheny are still dark. That low hum from the coal processing plant to the northeast. It's been running since 1963, never stops. You stop noticing it after a while, except when you need something to hold on to. It's there now. I've been awake since 4:47, which is when I always wake up, because for 29 years, 4:47 was when I started mentally sorting the night shift handoff. My body doesn't know it's over. I've had 23 years and 7 months to tell it. It's not convinced. The thing they don't tell you about being an ICU nurse who develops a dependency, and I want to be precise here because I spent decades being precise, it's a professional habit I can't shake, is that the pharmacological knowledge doesn't protect you. I thought it did. That was the first truth I had to swallow whole, no water. I knew meperidine hydrochloride. I had administered it to patients in crisis more times than I could count by 1991. I knew the therapeutic window. I knew the half-life of normeperidine, the toxic metabolite, 15 to 30 hours, accumulates with repeated dosing, causes CNS excitation, tremors, seizures at sufficient concentrations. I knew this the way I knew my own address. Dr. Phil Crenshaw prescribed it to me after the L4-L5 fracture. Demerol, 50 milligrams oral, 3 times daily, 6 weeks. I was turning a 340-pound patient. His name was Terence. He had a wife named Dot. She brought him butterscotch candies he wasn't allowed to eat. And something in my lower back gave way like a green stick snapping. The pain was immediate and total. Phil wrote the script. He said, "Ruth, you know this medication. You'll manage it appropriately." He trusted me because of my record. 23 years clean attendance. The nurses on 4 East used to say among themselves, "Call Ruth first." I knew it. It wasn't arrogance, it was just accurate. I was the one who could start a peripheral IV in a vein you couldn't see or feel. I was the one who caught the potassium drip running too fast at 2:15 on a Sunday. I was functionally irreplaceable. I thought that made me safe. I said those words in group 17 years later, and a man across the circle, Danny, 34, fentanyl, 3rd time in treatment, looked at me with an expression I had only ever seen on families receiving terminal diagnoses. Pure, quiet comprehension. He nodded once. He didn't need me to explain further. Here is what a vial of meperidine looks like. 20 milliliters of clear liquid, rubber stoppered. The label says 100 milligrams per 2 milliliters. Standard hospital formulary. I had handled thousands of them. The procedure was withdraw prescribed dose, administer, record remainder, waste with a witness. Someone signs, someone watches. I started without a witness in March of 1993. By then, the oral prescription had ended. Phil had done his due diligence. The pain had technically resolved. What hadn't resolved was what I learned the drug could do to the particular quality of silence inside me that I had been managing since roughly 1987 without having a name for it. I don't want to make this poetic. It wasn't poetic. It was a broom closet in the ICU supply area, a 22-gauge needle, and 8 minutes of relief from something I couldn't diagnose in myself, despite being able to diagnose it in others. At the peak, I was drawing 400 milligrams daily via IV push. The toxic threshold for meperidine accumulation is generally considered to begin around 300 milligrams daily, sustained. I exceeded that for approximately 3 years before my body filed its objection. But here is what I actually did, the part that is hard to say plainly. In the final 3 years, I wasn't just diverting. I was withdrawing the prescribed dose from the vial, administering it to the patient, then withdrawing my own dose from a second vial, and replacing the liquid with 0.9% sodium chloride, normal saline, resealing it, returning it to the formulary cart. The label still said meperidine. What was inside was not meperidine. The vial looked exactly the same. The label said the same thing. The seal appeared intact. That is what a dependency does that I have never heard anyone say clearly enough. It doesn't destroy the container. It empties it and fills it with something else and seals it back. You walk around looking entirely like yourself. Your performance reviews say, exceptional. The cardiologist on nights says, I always feel better when Ruth is on. The vial circulates. No one checks what's inside until someone needs what the label says is in there. Leonard Hicks was 67, elective hip replacement. He woke up in post-op with inadequate analgesia and screamed. He screamed, and I know this because Carol told me later. Carol Fitch, surgical floor, the one person who knew. He screamed in a way that made a recovery room that had heard everything go briefly, completely silent. He got what he needed. Someone caught it, identified the vial, reported it as a probable pharmacy dispensing error. The investigation went nowhere. This was 1997. I have said his name once a day since then. I said it this morning right before the kracha. Carol saw me in the supply corridor in September of 1998. I don't know exactly what she saw. I had gotten skilled at concealment, but she saw enough. She looked at me for a long moment, and then she walked away, and she never said anything. Not to the charge nurse, not to administration, not to me directly, ever. Carol Fitch died of a fentanyl overdose in 2012. She was 58. She had retired 2 years before. I have thought about this more than I can account for. What she was carrying when she walked away from that corridor, whether her silence was loyalty or self-protection, or simple inability to navigate what she was seeing. Whether what she saw in me she also recognized. I will never know. I know that we were both carrying something we couldn't put down, and we never said so to each other, and she is gone. The people who didn't report you also carry it. That is something I wasn't prepared for. The weight of being witnessed and protected. It has a different texture than guilt, but it lives in the same room. Gary found the syringes in November of 1998, a shoebox on the top shelf of the bedroom closet, behind my winter uniform cardigans. He brought the box into the kitchen and set it on the table between us, and we sat there for several minutes without speaking. I told him it was for a patient. I said it with the exact inflection I used when delivering information to family members. Calm, measured, factual. He had heard that voice for 23 years. He knew what it meant when the facts were designed to be absorbed rather than questioned. He filed in February of 1999. The divorce was final that August. I told myself he didn't understand the medical context. I said this internally with the conviction of someone who has spent decades believing their clinical judgment about everything, including themselves. The mind will build a very sound structure out of very unsound materials if it's motivated. By 2000, the structure was failing. The convulsion happened on a Wednesday morning in October. I was changing into my uniform in the women's locker room on 4 East. The same locker room I had used since 1977, Locker 14, combination 32-8-19. I changed it every year, but always ended on 19 because Gary's birthday was the 19th. When the meperidine that had been accumulating in my nervous tissue for the better part of 3 years reached its threshold. I came to on a gurney in the ICU. Karen Pauley was there. Karen had been on our floor for 6 years. I had trained her. She had excellent IV technique and a tendency to over-document that I had gently corrected twice. She was holding my wrist. Someone had intubated me. I looked up at the ceiling. I had looked at those ceiling tiles from below 10,000 times, leaning over patients, adjusting lines, reading monitors mounted above the bed. I knew every water stain, every seam, the particular way the fluorescent panels were recessed. I had never been below them like that, flat, tubed, the patient. The people in my peripheral vision were people I had led, overseen, corrected, defended in front of physicians who underestimated them. They were doing their jobs exactly correctly, which meant that everything I had been doing for nearly a decade had brought me to the position of requiring their exact, correct care. The investigation began in January of 2001. The pharmacy reconciliation audit, which I had personally helped design in 1994 as a patient safety measure, identified 23 months of discrepancies in the controlled substance logs. My license was revoked in May of 2001. I moved to Elkins in 2003, rented a room from Hector Vasquez, who is now 76, and who has never once in 22 years asked me about my past. He repairs things. He grows tomatoes in the summer. He calls me Ruth, and sometimes leaves a plate in the refrigerator with a piece of foil over it. The room is $385 a month. I walk 20 minutes in the morning after the coffee. I volunteer at the food bank on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I take amlodipine 5 milligrams and aspirin 81 milligrams, organized in a pill sorter I refill every Sunday night, which is a ritual I am aware carries its own irony. Sherry calls once a quarter. There is a pause, almost imperceptible, she has worked on it, before she hugs me. Dale sends a Christmas card with the name printed, not written. I look at his handwriting every year and think about how I have no idea what it looks like now. I have 23 years and 7 months without meperidine. The Demerol formulary was largely phased out of hospitals in the early 2000s anyway. Safer alternatives, CNS side effects, the meperidine toxicity concern finally taken seriously system-wide. The substance that owned me for a decade is no longer routinely available in the setting where I used it. I used to find that thought comforting in some way I couldn't name. I don't anymore. It doesn't matter whether the particular door is locked. I know what I'm capable of standing in front of it. I still have occasional partial focal seizures. The neurologist calls them residual. The meperidine damage was not fully reversible. The low back pain is chronic, managed without opioids, managed with walking and heat, and the particular kind of daily renegotiation with discomfort that I find I have gotten quite skilled at for reasons that are not all medical. The tinnitus in my right ear is constant. The jaw asymmetry is from clenching during the grand mal. I wasn't told this for 2 years, and when I finally asked the dentist directly, she confirmed it. I don't say any of this for sympathy. I say it because the body tells the truth when nothing else will. The convulsion said what I had been unable to say for almost a decade. My nervous system finally filed the report that I had been falsifying. The crachat in my pocket is from 1988. I'm 35 in the photo. White uniform, hair still mostly dark, smiling the way you smile for a photo when you've just been told your performance review was the best in the department. I look like someone who knows what she's doing. I was. I did. Both things were true. That is the part I keep turning over, sitting here with the Allegheny going from black to blue-gray in the early light. That the competence was real, the care was real, the 24 years of not missing a shift, the hands that could find a vein in the dark, the instinct that had saved, I was going to say dozens, but I don't actually know the number, and I've stopped rounding. The people I helped are real. And so is Leonard Hicks screaming in recovery. And so is the saline in the vial. I carry the crachat because I need to remember that both the woman in the photo and what she became later were the same person. Not before and after, the same. What I was capable of doing was always in me. I just didn't know which direction it would run. Sobriety is not redemption. I want to be clear about that because I have sat in enough rooms where people treat it like one. 23 years and 7 months is not a score that cancels a previous score. Carol is still dead. Leonard Hicks is 97 or he is not alive, I don't know which, and I don't have a right to know. Gary remarried in 2004 to a woman named Patricia, who teaches elementary school in Somersville. I found this out by accident. I did not pursue further information. The work, and this is the last thing, the thing I've had the longest to sit with, the work is not stopping. That's the beginning. The work is figuring out how to live in the same body that did what it did, in the same mind that justified it for a decade with clinical precision, without either burning it down or pretending it didn't happen. Some mornings I manage it. Some mornings I sit on this porch in the dark with the hemlock rattling and the processing plant humming, and I feel something that I would describe, if pressed, as almost okay. The sun is starting now. The ridge is turning from black to that particular shade of dark blue you only see for about 4 minutes. I've been watching it for 22 years. I never watched sunrises before. I was always already inside.